Welcome to today's tutorial. So we're going to look at the exercise that I recently gave you, and this question says find the center, the vertices, the foci of the ellipse given by each equation and sketch the graph after finding this. Okay, so this one is straightforward, you don't even have to stress. The first thing that you have to do, I'll start with this one here. So the first thing that you have to do when solving such a question is you first have to identify which one is your A. Remember what I said on ellipse? So I said A is always greater than B when you're dealing with ellipse, or you can say A squared is always greater than B squared. So the number which is bigger than the other here is the one that we are going to get as our A. So as our A squared, so our A squared in this case is simply just equal to 81. So when you find the square root of both sides, you have this side, then you also have the square root of 81 this side. So the value of A gives us 9. So the other number which remains becomes your B. So you also find your B, becomes your B squared. So you also find your B by squaring both sides. So when you square B squared there, you find the square root of B squared, the answer is B. And then when you find the square root of 49, the answer is 7. Okay, so we have found our A and our B there. So the other thing that you need to find is the center. So how do you find the center of this ellipse? So of course the numerator there is just x, meaning if we equate x here, if you equate x to 0, meaning the x coordinate will be 0 of the center, then the y coordinate to equate y minus 2 to 0. So the value of y becomes positive 2, meaning the center will be 0,2. Okay, so from there we can now find the eccentricity. And how do you find eccentricity? We know that eccentricity is just given by C over A. And do we have C? No, we don't. So we find C by using this equation. C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. So our C squared is equal to, our A squared is 81, and then minus B squared is 49. So when you subtract the 2, you have your C squared being equal to, so C squared will be 81 minus 49, which gives us 32. So C becomes the square root of 32. Alright, so the other thing that we have to do here, we've managed to find A, B and C. So what we just need to do is to find the vertices. So when finding the vertices, you need to identify first whether this ellipse is in the x or is in the y. So if the value of A is under y, like in our case the value of A is under y, this simply means that this ellipse is in the y. So we expect our ellipse to come out like this. That is how it's going to come out. So let me just scroll down so that we have some more space. Okay, so that is how our ellipse is going to come out. And then the other thing that we need to find here is the question is saying we find the center which has been found, which is here. Let us now find the vertices, then the focus of the ellipse. So how do we find the vertices? So since we know that this is in the y, so we know that in the y, x is going to be constant. What is going to be changing is y. So the vertices, our v1 becomes our v1 from the center. We're going to add A and subtract a from the y coordinate. So the first vertex, the first vertex, which is v1, is just going to be 0, comma, so this will be 2 plus 9, which gives us 0, comma 11. This is our first vertex. And then our v2, I said x will be constant. It will be constant since we are in the y, so meaning 0 will still be 0, and then this will be comma, so we say 2 minus 9, so this gives us 0, comma negative 7. Then from there we can also find the what is, we've been told to find the vertex, the focus, yeah. So f1, so to find f1, 0 will still be 0, but in this this time around we're just going to be adding c and subtract c from the y coordinate. So we're going to have 2 plus the root of 32, and then f2 becomes 0, comma 2 minus the root of 32. Yeah, so from there we can now find the minor and the major axis. So we know that the x coordinate is 0, so yeah, so if you want you can even start sketching. If you don't want to get lost, you can start sketching. You see where this is taking you. So we can draw our line there, our y axis, and then our x axis there. Then this is our center of the xy plane, and then we know that our center is simply just 0, 2. So our center is 0, 2. So I'm going to say this is 1, 2. So that is where my 2 is. So my center is just somewhere there, and then I'm going to move steps going up. I'm going to move some steps going up. Okay, maybe even before I do this, let me just do this. Okay, let's just create more space so that we sketch something that will be visible to everyone. Okay, so let me just write the center here. So this was okay, so the center we said it's 0, 2. The vertex, so we also have to find the minor axis, the m1 and m2, the coordinates of the minor vertices, yeah, the coordinates of the minors, yeah. So let's find this. So we know that for the minor, in the minor, the one that is going to be constant is the y coordinate. So for the minor we have the value of b, which is so the value of b is just 7. So we're going to have 7. We're going to have 7, 2. So we're going to subtract and add 7 to the x coordinate. We know that in the x, along the x-axis, y is constant, so we expect our y coordinate to be constant. So the one that is going to change here is just the x coordinate. So we're going to have m1 to be 7, 2. Then we subtract 0 minus 7, we get negative 7, 2. So these are the minor vertices. So let's now sketch. So we have the the y axis there, then we also have the x axis, and then we have 0 there. So the center is 1, 2 there. So the first vertex we have is 0, 11. So expect to move 7 more steps up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then going down we have negative 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So have negative 7 there. Then you have 11 there. Then going this side we have to move 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 there. We also have to move 7 this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have negative 7 there. So that is how you deal with that is how you deal with the sketching. So from there we can now locate our points. We have 0, 11, which is our V1. So 0, 11 is somewhere there. Then we have 7, 2 somewhere there, 7, 2. Then we also have negative 7, 2 there, and then we have 7, we have 0, negative 7. So you can now sketch our ellipse. Okay. Yeah, but it looks like an ellipse. Okay, so that is how you do the sketching. I didn't just draw the spacing wasn't just okay, that's why it looks like a circle or a square of some sort. Okay, so that is simply how you deal with that question. So if you have a question, then I don't know, because I've explained this one at least step by step. Let's also look at the second one, which most of you got wrong. Yeah, so let's look at the second one. Okay, so the second one you also do the same. Yeah, so this one, the only trick part that you need to look at is this part. Yeah, so that's the only trick part that you need to look at. Okay, so you look at the bigger number there. Before you even do that, you first have to rewrite this to a format that is that is for the ellipse. So this one is not the format of the ellipse. We know that for the ellipse, x squared is not supposed to have anything here in front. The same applies to y squared. Y squared is also not supposed to have anything in front. They do not have, they are not supposed to have any coefficient in front there. So let us write this in that format. So we have our x squared there over, so if we want to write this will be 9 over 4. So it's going to be 9 over 4, because we know that when we divide 9 over 4 into that, the answer will just be, if we divide this into that, the answer will be 4x squared over 9. So that's what we want to achieve there. So okay, so let's write this equation into that format now. So that's what we're going to have, and then from there we have a plus there. Then you have y squared over 16 is equal to 1. So here what you do is this squared, and then even that you have, we need now to identify which one is our a, which one is our b. So when you look at this question, which number is bigger than the other, because we know that for the ellipse, a squared is always supposed to be greater than b squared. So the number that is bigger than the other is 16. So our a squared becomes 16, meaning our a is going to be 4. So let us also get b. So our b squared is 9 over 4, and then our b becomes 3 over 2. So from there, this question now becomes easier for everyone to solve. So we can now find the value of c. So c squared is given by a squared minus b squared. Then c squared is going to be equal to, our a squared is simply just 16 minus b squared is 9 over 4. So when you subtract this, it is going to be when you subtract this, you're going to have c squared is equal to, okay, so when you subtract there 16 minus that, you get something like this. Will give us 16 times 4 give us 64 minus 9 to give us 55 over 4. So our c becomes the square root of 55 over 2. So that's our c. So from there we can now find the vertices. So v1, first our center, let's first start with our center. So the center is simply just 0, 0, and then v1 will just be, we add since we know that it's in the y, because our a is under the y-axis, so we add a to the y-coordinate. So the y-coordinate is 0, so we add 4 to 0 and subtract 4 from 0. So the first vertex there, which is v1, will just be 0, 4, and then v2 becomes 0, negative 4. When you say 0 minus 4, the answer is negative 4. Okay, so 0 minus 4, the answer is negative 4. Let me just remove this. Okay, alright, so let us also find m1 and m2. So m1 is simply just 3 over 2, 0, and m2 becomes negative 3 over 2, 0. You just get b, you add it and subtract it from the x coordinate, and then from there we can now have our f1 and f2. So our f1, we just add c to the center and subtract c from the center. So c, when added to the center, we're going to have 0, root 55 over 2. Then we also have, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so also have f2, which will be 0, negative root 55 over 2. So after finding these, I think we can now sketch. Then I forgot to find one thing on the previous question, the length of the minor and the length of the major axis. So the length of the minor axis is given by 2b, and then the length of the major axis is given by 2a. So to find these, so this one here, we know that we found b to be 3 over 2, so we say 3 over 2, so the length there will be 6 over 2, which gives us 3. Then for this other one here, for the major axis it's 2a, and then our a we found was 4, which gives us 8 units. So the length of the minor axis is 3, the length of the major axis is 8. Okay, so let us now move into sketching. Let us do our sketching. Okay, I'll just sketch it from here. So that is our y-axis, and then the x-axis is there. So the center is just this same point, 0, 0, and then the vertex v1 is 0,4, so I can count 1 2 3 4 there. Then 0, negative 4, 1 2 3 4, negative 4. And then 3 over 2 is just the same as 1.5. So if this is my 1, my 3 over 2 can just be somewhere there. Even this side, if this is my 1, my 3 over 2 will just be somewhere there. So from there, we can now put our focus. So our focus becomes, okay, so when you find the square root of 55, approximately 7 point something, divide by 2, that will be 3 point something. So our focus can be somewhere there. Even this side, our focus can be somewhere there. Okay, so this is where my f1 will be, then that is where my f2 will be. So we can just sketch this. Okay, so that is how it's supposed to come out. And then from there, you can name this. This is v1, this is v2, then you have m1, you have m2 there, then f1, f2. Yeah, so that is how you do the sketching. If you want, you can also show the y-axis, the x-axis there. Okay, so that is basically how you do the sketching. So let me make another tutorial for question 2. Thank you very much for watching.